Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. In the chat section, I've shared a link to a song. I would encourage the listeners to listen to this behind the song, behind the talk. To continue, or to begin, the title of today's episode is Activating Rhythms of the Mind. The rhythms of the human mind. And I wanted to speak about how we are not just an objective creature, a subjective creature, but we are also how uh, the inner realms and outer realms are in sync and they generate a rhythm. We can say we can say a person, for example, sitting at a table in a library in the middle of reading that book could suddenly start tapping their feet to the ground, and there could be a rhythm, and this could be as if the person is remembering the beat or rhythm of a song, and in the present moment they're in, it's having an influence. So there could be inner events where they become so powerful or so real that they influence our behavior in the outer realms. I feel how we perceive human reality is, in some sense, the thinking of the thin king. What I mean by is that it's this slowed down reality we live in where we move as an object, and in accordance to what is observable and changing, we come up with, let's say, the boundaries of our thought. Thought is an important thing to wonder about. Many people feel they shouldn't touch the idea because it can change reality if they wonder about what thought is. But I would tell you it's one of the most important things we can wonder about, and to fear what we are or knowing the depths of what we are is like a fallacy to begin with. As a creature that is an object that can generate subjects or move subjects, or a subject that is moving itself as an object, this has to be studied in such a deep way that we even figure out how they come about. That means there's a moment where a person can feel like, okay, I needed my body to have a brain, I needed the brain to have a generator of personality, mind, free will, whatever. But then there are moments where the person is making decisions using the free will, where they wonder, in some senses, the information or the signals being received for mobility, is it just arising from the embodiment? That means an antenna technically is not the signal it's receiving, but it can receive the signal, and we could be a sort of human embodiment, but also this human embodiment being a sort of antenna, and this antenna picking up different modalities of the realm, different waves of how the realm is. For me, si- since I would say since my childhood, I wasn't a rhythm savvy person. Many moments in my life I have been off rhythm until the year 2011. I felt that my life was in some sort of karmic quarantine, and from 2011 and going forth, levels of that karmic quarantine have been lifted. In 2011 was the date where I discovered my unknown self, where I discovered that everything I realize about myself, everything I know, all the information that I am using to, in some sense, have an analysis on myself, I realize that is limited and I don't know. And I can tell you that moment when you realize, it's not that you realize just you don't know, you realize the idea of you is such a small container compared to the vastness of what could be going on here. In my personal life, a wave of a strange synchronistic wave of humility was found. I became preferenceless. It's as if like a person in a swimming pool where everybody's swimming in and this person is swimming, but as they're swimming, it's like something is off, right? Like there's in swimming we have what's it called, the butterfly stroke. Like it's like this kind of specific way to swim where both of your arms lift into the air as you're, I don't know, sort of a swimming technique. They call it the butterfly. I don't know any more specific term for it, but imagine somebody's using that technique and others are using, the general technique. I don't know the English word for it either. But I'll tell you, just normal front stroke or something. But the whole point of me saying this is, in some sense, it's like swimming different in a crowd of swimmers, and then you realize the way you're swimming that is different is not compatible with the same speed as the crowd or your environment or whatever. Then the person stops swimming for a moment, lets themselves get a sense of the water, its depth, and then the person has the choice of choosing their strategy. So it's as if like a person being born thinking there's only one way to swim. That's like a belief system just accepted emotionally since childhood. Now, the person, let's say through meditation and whatnot, self inquiry, stops swimming, realizes the nature of the swimmer, realizes all the different ways they can swim, then they go back into, let's say they continue in the swimming pool with whatever they choose out of all that they have known of themselves. This world we're living in has unknown variables, and unknown variables meet us every day. They really give the objectives of life. That which is unknown makes us want to know, gives us purpose. That means if right now we knew what the mind was, what the deeper nature of intelligence was, there would be no reason for me to give these talks. It's simply the unknown that excites us, because what we know, we know. When it comes to the rhythms of the outer realms and the inner realms, a person has to notice it. And based on noticing a rhythm, like a surfer, you catch the wave. And this is very important because we may feel rhythm is limited, at least for now, to the domain of music, as if we have a sort of auditory going along with the rhythm. Let's say a surfer has a sensation-based experience of a rhythm, or let's say somebody like riding a horse galloping. These are outer realm rhythms. But I would say an inner realm rhythm, it's as if your mind starts being like music. And when your mind plays like music, it has one smooth rhythm. It is not like a song. It's not like a song that could falter if you're on rhythm with it. I would say a strategy, at least I have implemented, or somehow extracted from my life experiences, is that there's two ways to catch a rhythm. Either you become faster than the rhythm and you catch it that way, or you become slower than the rhythm and you notice the rhythm and the rhythm pulls you. You can say a person who feels, let's say, like supremely unknown to a point where they don't feel like they're a physical being. For them, they can't consciously wield rhythm, but they can be found in the great rhythm behind everything, as if there's a song playing that every creature in creation can listen to if they care. But very few care because the sound comes from within. It's one of those strange incidents that is not per se just outer realm. I'll give you an example. For example, when I come to give these talks, there isn't per se planning. I just see the title, like a title arises to me, and that title has image, and the whole exploration of the talk becomes me trying to look at this image and being like, okay, what am I really seeing behind these words? Now the thing is, as I go to do this, the curiosity or the fascination or the actual wonder for like how something is there or how something works opens one to noticing the rhythm. Then the next thing is trust. That means you can't be an explorer if you can't trust the realm. You have to trust the unknown. You have to trust even that there is something in the unknown. Can you imagine how scary it could have been back in the day to swim in an ocean to go see if there's new land, but at the same time never knowing if there's going to be new land? That means, imagine it was like there was no land on the other side and all the explorers would go and they would die out of hunger, like on the boat or whatnot. These rhythms, one can choose to animate, one can choose to personalize them. I would say not a giant percentage, but a percentage of human beings on this planet have interdimensional relationships. Whether that interdimensional relationship is them visualizing there's a being in another dimension beyond the senses, whether that interdimensionality is considering that what is beyond the senses is just beyond the senses, it can't be shaped. Strangely, I feel there's an art to opening up to a world and then closing from that world. Closing that world. Experience feels like an absorption. It's like as if when a person eats food, there's a beginning point where they're eating the food, and then the food is finished, and then they move past the food. And human experiences, it's like the mind is feeding upon, it's like the brain is feeding upon sensory perception. The senses are like brain food. And so the experience of just living feels like an event. It feels like I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say it feels like eating, but it feels like a participation in something that something changes. Because it's kind of impossible to live in a changing world and not to change it and not to be changed by it. Perhaps we, as human beings, have been convinced of a slower rate of reality. We are looking for static truths in a river. Imagine in a river of paint with different colors in it, we're trying to imagine like what the color of the river is. In a multidimensional system, we're trying to pinpoint the meaning of the whole system through one dimension. You know, the humble strategy of the human being should be, in some sense, okay, it's too big to be known by the small brain. But if the brain is an antenna, it can pick up on the most important signals in the realm. You know, there are moments in my life where I just sit still and silent, and I scan not just the room, I scan the mind. Usually wherever I go, I in some sense scan what's going on. I mean, it's unavoidable. A person just subconsciously does this, but if a person consciously does this, it means then they are becoming familiar with the space, as if the brain has taken enough time to recreate subjectively every part of the visual sensory moment. Because the way we feel, like for example, a person may look at an object in front of them. I'm looking at my phone right now. So when I look at my phone, it's as if like it's an object. Sensory wise, the senses don't lie. I visually see the phone. Now, when I think about using this phone to call someone, I don't physically see that. That means when it's like a person wondering if they should pick up the phone and call someone, but it's like in their mind they're seeing the picture of how they have held the phone in their hand. It's as if we are living before we actually live. We're living as our mind in our minds before we actually implement this in the outer realms. That means every person in history who has been an inventor, they have in some sense just implemented a pattern of psychology to an object. Because our psychology is being reinvented every day. We cannot ignore this. We wake up in the morning, conscious moment, conscious moment, conscious moment, then suddenly we sleep. And we enter deep sleep. And deep sleep is one of the greatest mysteries. Just like we have the pyramids, it's one of the wonders of the inner realm, deep sleep. I would say dreams are one of the wonders of the inner realms, deep sleep. Interdimensional communication can be said to be a wonder of the inner realms. I mean, where else can the human being have a multidimensional relationship with the world? That means it could be that after human transition, we are just energy. We're just sight as space, and sight as space may suddenly then realize the true value of its mobility as an embodiment. You know, it's as if we don't know we are more than the body. So right now there's a fascination. Oh my God, what are we? But if we had known it, and if we knew there were greater dimensions, and now imagine we had become comfortable and had attained some sort of approachable mastery. It's like we explore, we stabilize. We explore, we stabilize, or we explore and we readjust. Explore, readjust, explore, readjust. This is ultimately what every day being alive is. Every day of life is an experiential, is a subjective experiential realignment of one objective activity. I mean, it's kind of incredible how it's just one body. That means atoms don't sleep, but the conscious psychology of the human being is dismissed in deep sleep. You know, a person doesn't stop existing when they're in deep sleep, but they stop existing to themselves. These are all suggestions that there is more than the body's framework that we can become conscious of in a moment. You know, if we treated dreams like reality, everybody would be insane. And therefore, this transcendental distinction between body and mind being of a different essence. That means it's as if a person's body, it belongs to the observable universe. Due to the strange behavior of the mind, we can't just render it observable. That means any human being who has said they know their mind is either a fortune teller or someone who has an interpretation of the mind that is a photo on a wall. Because everything can be pointed to in this realm. That means any person can come and say anything. Let's say there's person A and person B, and let's say person A, I don't know, spills tea on the table or something, and person B comes and says, "You are a terrible human being," to person A. Now, person A has so many angles of approach. Person A can even take the approach of saying, "How do you know what you know?" That means any point of judgment is being established from some domain of certainty. That domain of certainty can be questioned because everything in its simpler level, if a complexity is being accepted as truth, its simpler stages will automatically be unknown. If simplicity is being accepted as truth, the complexity will be left in the unknown. That means, let's say a simple religious person in a village out in the outskirts that have never seen technology. Okay, and let's say there are villages, simple villages, and there's a farmer, who has never seen technology, and this farmer's like, "Oh man, when's it gonna rain?" You know, and let's say even this farmer is praying to, I don't know, the rain gods or something, is doing even a rain dance or something. Now, what's going to happen, imagine this giant in the future, this kind of like giant fence is going to float above this farmer's farm field, and it's just going to rain. It's going to be artificial technological drone rain, you know? So let's say it's like, I don't know, a bunch of drones, capsules of water in a drone format just come and release themselves, sprinkle themselves over the farmer's land. Now the farmer was never seen technology. Because the farmer has accepted simplicity, the moment that complex technology unfathomable to the farmer comes out of nowhere, and let's say the geometry of that is kind of alien, it looks like an alien kind of technology that this farmer has never seen. This farmer will attribute the complexity to the unknown mystery. This is why invisible assistance has been misinterpreted for divinity. You see, the divine is such an incredible concept because it is the concept that man's mind can never touch but is being touched by. I would say interdimensional assistance is only in energetic intensity. Attention is the most crucial thing. It's as if we're being in 7 rooms, but we're only aware of one of the rooms. And beyond the 7th room, we're not individual. It's as if like after after divine sight, there is nothing else to see. There's divine being. When one is in divine being, the total configuration of ideological identity evaporates. I'm telling you, there's states of being that we can just, it's like they're an instant away. that a being can enter in some sense where they are they are not based on the body's definition a thing or a non-thing. They are like awareness. We don't realize it, but we are awareness plus body. There's content in the awareness. Now, we don't realize, because we have awakened to our awareness through our body, we can't fathom anything else. But if we realize awareness has an ability to stand on its own regardless of what man does, that means in every human experience, that witness, unknown witness in every birthday, everything the human being has done, it's as if the conscience is the mind of the mind, or is like some watching decision compiler of the mind, beyond the mind. That means we are watching how we are watching our life. That watcher within, which is watching the without, that means the inner realms are aware of the outer realms. But the way we're conditioned, it's like the outer realms are not aware of the inner realms. That means the mind is like being a mind through the shadow of the body rather than the light of the soul. If the soul was seen as just pure light, if the mind was seen as an object, and if the body was seen as the shadow of the mind, it's as if an inconceivable mind and a sort of creative engine to existence. Like we as human beings, they're like, how many programmers are there, right? We are literally acting like the gods of the future. You know, it's hilarious. People stopped believing in God because they all started to behave like it. When Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead and man killed him, I feel there could have been another version of that quote where God is dead and man became him. What this means is the moment we as a species stop caring for the natural simplicity and fragility, just decency of human psychology. There's a simple level of being a natural human being that shouldn't be interfered with. If that is interfered with, inner extinction happens. Inner extinction happens. What that means is if people's minds stop being human, but they are in human bodies, it's just about time, in a long enough time span, they would become machines. That means if right now, if I for a moment just take my attention away from being human, what that means is if I say I'm infinite energy right now, it's as if I will realize a less of a tender preservation of the human format. And I'm speaking of experience. I'm telling you, this is the challenge of the advanced communicators, in how do we balance the allure of physical living and the allure of non-physical awareness, right? Because they both have an allure. They both have it's not one is like a desire of selflessness, the other is a desire of selfishness. That means you have to be a little bit selfish in the outer realms to be a body, you know. That means it's as if like without a sort of level of selfishness in the outer realms, of course, humanization is impossible. Like if a person becomes completely selfless, the person's going to be like, "What's your name?" And the person's like, "I have no name." I have energy everywhere. You know, it's like you can't name energy everywhere. It's so easy to not be human. But what the challenge is to carry the responsibility of our humanization, create backup systems then that preserve it. The moment we create a stable and incredible human backup system, what that means is the human body is of course human. We say the body is human, but when it comes to the mind, it would be like a sort of alphabet of states of mind, where the first letter A is the human idea. And so children all around the planet are being taught that your body is visible or accessible in one dimension, but your mind, because due to its multidimensional nature, probabilizes the body, sees probabilities in the body. The moment it sees a probability more than one, it has rendered itself into an additional dimension. So what I mean is that in the future, hopefully this will be a slogan. This may be written, if civilization gets too technologically out of control, this may be written, or ideologically out of control, this may be graffitied on the walls, where people would say, be human first. To be human first is the most important thing in any sort of communication, because the human body needs to be maintained. It's as if a person needs to know where they park their car if they are truly in a mystical sense. I'm speaking to the mystics out there, going in their inner realms. That means if you don't know where your car is parked, it's as if your samadhi is not human. You have not gone into a human samadhi. Or a samadhi that is preservable by the human idea, Like I can right now in my inner realms think I'm the strongest person in the world and go try to lift a car and hurt myself. So the inner realms require a practicality or some sort of real level of approach to one's intelligence. That's the human level. If we can be human first, then any state of consciousness is easy. For me, I'll give you an example of how I'm playful with my inner realms. The moment I open my eyes, usually instantly the experience becomes humanized. But if I've closed my eyes and in my inner realms I have acknowledged that I am that abyss, and I've taken the advantage of that pitch black abyss behind the eyes when the eyelids are covered, that pitch black abyss, the advantage of that is that you can be a phenomena without the distraction of your body when you close your eyes, for example. So in the inner realms, one can choose to maneuver as a geometric shape. All those people who for example, there's in the New Age community in Arizona, Mount Shasta area, all those people who feel they're channeling, they don't realize the mind is accessing an image. It's just shy with the image, so it can't say it is it. Right? That means it's as if somebody thinking they're Superman and then in some sense not feeling their human ego deserves to be human man, deserves to be Superman. So in some sense they will be they will in some sense feel like they're channeling Superman. Do you see what I mean? It's like an undeserved archetype. Channelers are in some sense indirectly communicating what their mind, without prior comparison, is instantaneously being. There is assistance in this realm in regards to rhythms that are intelligent. Like we say, there are intelligent objects, like the human beings, and there is, non-intelligent objects. I don't know, like a cup of coffee, and and so we have to consider there is intelligent subjects and there is non-intelligent subjects. And intelligent subjects can be treated as rhythms that did not start from the human brain, as if the brain is an instrument playing a melody, but it's not. It suddenly notices what it's hearing is not its own melody only, as if there's other instruments in the realm, much bigger than one can fathom, that are also playing their melodies. We feel human beings are only living here for a human life. But if it is multidimensional, how many other tenants are there really in the room? How many different types of aliens? Imagine there's an alien species in an invisible dimension on Earth. Now imagine to that alien species in the invisible dimension, there's a bigger alien species watching them. That means the aliens that are watching us, the other aliens are watching them, other aliens are watching them. That means it's as if till the end of time, aliens will see aliens. So, and it's all just an approach and an attitude, because energetically we're the same as any other phenomena in this realm. It is just ideologically and due to the conscious identification we're different. That means it's as if in science textbooks we realize we're all energy. We say we're made of energy. But yet we fight over how this energy looks. It's as if we've forgotten the basic view of things. And what's even more remarkable is just the transcendental notion of energy as something not being, in some sense, not be something that is can't be created or destroyed. I remember when I was very young, I asked, I don't know if it was a family member or someone, I asked in some sense, what is God? Right? And it was like this thing, it was the inconceivable, that which is inconceivable, that which cannot be created or destroyed, but its intelligent will is moving everything, right? So it's kind of like an indirect pointer to, a compassionate overlord. So this notion of an energy that cannot be created or destroyed but is changing from form to form and changes everything, it's as if God is the mind of the universe. Just like we say we have a body and we have a mind, it's as if there is a body, there's a universal body, and let's consider there's a universal mind. An overall administration of intelligent form. Wherever there is the unknown and fascination, rhythms activate. Whatever. It could be with anything. It could be a person zooming in on an object, and the moment they become fascinated and notice unknown space that hasn't been tapped into, rhythms arise. And these rhythms do have an intelligence, the intelligence of the universal mind, but it is not in a way where we can just say, hey, I'm talking to the universe. It's more like the universe, we are the universe's speech in every moment. It's hilarious, as if I'm here thinking I'm a podcaster giving a talk. Now imagine the whole universe is now giving a talk. It's like the poetry that I'm sharing. I like the poetry of the higher dimension simultaneously, and those who I feel they're writing this poetry, they are the poetry of the higher dimensions. And it's this strange, creative, integrative, I don't want to say regression or just progression, but it's just this spiral of creative force in multiple dimensions, in multiple moments. And so if one could see themselves, it's as if seeing the universe like a child. It's strange. It's like when you realize the world is a child, you're like, no way, you know? In my science fiction, I will share this. This is a chapter before the final chapter in the book. But there's I'll say it in a way where people will still care to read the other parts. But I'll tell you this, in this chapter, I have created a science fiction novel where it has war, it has like conflict-based dimensions, but the ultimate purpose of the main character is just to escort the truth of the realm. And so the main character, his name is Rasool, the science fiction novel, it's unpublished for now, but it's called The Messenger of Giants. And so Rasool is this character where, and by the way, just to let the audience know something, in my science fiction, because it's a gift for the echo of my genetics, I have in some sense given myself permission to go all out. So the main character in the story, it is his first incarnation as a human being, and the previous incarnation he has only been galaxies. His consciousness has just been like the space of galaxies. And this character goes through various things, and the whole point of this character is that he never fights anyone. He doesn't fight the world, the nature, the forces of nature. As if nature handles its own karma, it knows better. There's a golden star child in the story, and Rasul, he goes through so many intense occasions, intense events, but the last final thing is for 10 and 15 minutes, all of humanity has been warned before, and all of humanity has been, there's this specific location where this just divine being, this divine, like, interdimensional, later on in the story you realize, I'm slightly giving it away, but you realize Rasul. Okay, so this is how the scene happens. Imagine in the year 5025, in us, out of 9 parallel universes of Earth, in the 10th parallel universe, there is a child which is God incarnate, but it is the God of the sci-fi universe I've created. And I'll explain to you what the mythology of it is. So this God is arising as just this kid who's just coming around in for 15 minutes in the realm, and just he touches a tree, touches a bunch of other objects, and then Rasul is the only human being in the main character of the story that is escorting God in this incarnate form. And so what happens is, as they are leaving, this is the last, getting close to the ending of the book, where what happens is Rasul leaves his body, and when he leaves his, Rasul and this child are just there walking, and they're crossing this dimension. I wish I had the paper here. One day, guys, in the channel called Mr.Within's Library, I'll share all of this. Anyways, the idea of it is that child in another dimension is the central sun, and is the central sun of the universe. And the whole truth of reality is just this central source of energy. And so the book gets to a point where it says Rasul reached a point, if I remember correctly, I said he reaches a point where he realized he doesn't need to be a concept anymore. And at the end of the book, literally the main character advances beyond the language threshold. My point is, like, if it's multidimensional, nobody is what they appear to be. I honestly need to dedicate more episodes to the science fiction. I think just as a backup system, I don't know, maybe in a future episode, I'll just make it a science fiction episode, and I'll just read the science fiction I've written. So the main character, there's a lot of things that people don't know about it, but pretty much the reason I shared that scene is because it's just the point where the point of life is not always a complex event or advancement. Even the assistance of something simple can be very helpful, because every person has been a child. So we know what it's like to be a child in the world. So we know in some sense what it's like for the future generations opening their eyes. Right? The future generations, it's as if we have been entered the battlefield and we haven't created an efficient system that updates the new soldiers in this battlefield of the space-time continuum. Now, I'm saying battlefield, why? Because I don't want it to be boring in the sense of just, it's like just in an easy way, people just level up. This realm is honestly like attention or animate. Attention has become a pilot of form. And so to pilot our reality, and through direct experience, cultivating a trust of the rhythms that move life. There is no ultimate promise. I mean, in a changing world, I mean, we can't make promises, but I'm saying like there is probabilities though, in the sense that if human beings find a world story, and you know what it's like, it's as if suddenly a percentage of human beings, imagine 8 billion human beings or 8 billion unique instruments, never existed before. Now a percentage of these instruments are going to start playing advanced songs, like they're going to play the instruments in advanced ways. It's going to create a melody that is going to be heard by those who are not playing the instruments of intelligence. When this melody is heard, eventually it will become a collective orchestra. The more the orchestra appears, the more it's going to be children are going to be born into this world not having the option to even hate it. You know? Not that it's like one can hate anything in any moment. What I'm saying, it's one of those things where there is more reasons. It's as if people will open their eyes in this world, being energized to engage it. As if every moment a person is not conscious, civilization is not advancing. You know, that means imagine every person who came after home, they came home after work in an advanced civilization, your work would have magnitudes, would be magnified to such a degree, its implication. That means it would be something where everybody would have an incredible level of honor, a sort of honor that will instantly bring serenity in the minds of the species. A contentment that with what we are doing, because ultimately it's that, it's a person's behavior. If a person does something and they're not content with it, they are creating a memory. Okay, in the chat section, an interesting comment has appeared. As one says, adulthood excuse me. As one says, adulthood is a fictitious concept, so when you turn 18, the child in you dies and an adult is born. And then as one says, Carl Jung says, adulthood starts at 40. I would say we can't linearize it that easily. I would say in people's inner realms and outer realms, in certain dimensions, they have been exposed to a pattern to a degree where they have seen more dimensions. That means, let's say you're a swordsman and you pick up a sword and you experience moving it, and one time you experience dropping it from your hand. Eventually, when you go use a pattern for a long time, you start seeing multiple angles, and throughout those multiple angles, eventually there comes a sort of contentment, a sort of understanding, being more superior than one's emotional desire, and understanding for the rhythm of continuity. But I would say people's inner realms and outer realms are different. That means a person in their outer realms could be a specific age. In their inner realms, they could be a different. Their inner realms could be a different age. You know, you can see as a very young child, behave like a grown man. And you can see a grown man behave like a young child. This means that the psychology is not conditional to the outer realms. That means one is not just their appearance. That means the way the body is, the mind is not just like that. The mind has way more instantaneous evocational change. That means a person can wake up one day feeling young, and they can wake up one day feeling old. They can wake up, it's like endless ways you can wake up to what you are. Right? But in the inner realms, it has to be in accordance with society and the cultural program, because you can say, what is mature in a culture? Let's say the culture is immature. Let's say in an immature culture, you're behaving mature. Does that mean you're mature? It could imply, it doesn't, not the case, Let's say we are saying we're all mature human beings, but there's world poverty, and there is pollution, and there's just a lot of things we're not being mature about, right? That means it's like the maturity is conditional to just certain domains that we have experienced so much that we can in some sense wield, right? So it's as if like this is the difference of maturity. The soldier who is new to the battlefield has a level of maturity, a level of immaturity or maturity. It's like more immaturity at that point. But the more the soldier goes on the battlefield and experiences events of that intensity, the more the soldier just snaps out of just how it was before. It's like you cannot experience a new dimension and be the same person. So at least the best thing one can do in the changing moments of life is cultivate what serves them to some degree. My father had an incredible thing he would say, and he would say that whenever you go to any sort of gathering or any lecture, try to take away at least one good sentence from it. That means even if you spent a lot of energy and went to something, you extract the value out of life, really. A person can point to it. A person could say, yeah, this path is great. People, you come to this path. But unless the person cares enough for that worldview, it's like the worldview is inaccessible. Everything is a choice. You can choose to sit cross-legged on a chair, and the consequence is your leg feels numb. So, in some sense, what I'm saying is, the mind is not bound to time because it's creating time. You see, as a mental being, as a mind being, one can say they are God, they are an extraterrestrial, they are this, they are that, whatever, like anything. They could think they're a dragon, they could think they're like a, mythological being, they could feel like whatever image you bring, it's like the light of the mind shines upon, and the person can choose to worship just like where the spotlight of attention is gone or the content that's in it. But it's like it's unnecessary to worship things, because usually people worship out of fear or desire. That means the type of spirituality we find in the modern cultural program is a spirituality that has given up on the simplicity of being, and through a level of complex display is only willing to accept it. That means if one treats truth super simple, in a simple way, they access it simply. That means in moments of intense complexity, if the person just becomes a simple person, that means if there's a line, let's say you're waiting at a line in a gas station, and suddenly everybody in the line of the gas station starts complaining, right? And you, in that moment where everybody is choosing a complex strategy, you just choose to be super simple. And every person in the lineup is like rude to the cashier, and then when it becomes your turn, you're just simple. You're polite to the person. Or let's say the moment is super simple. Let's say it's a super simple moment. The person can go through the complex angle. It's like we forget we have inner choice. And when we forget we have inner choice, instead of us leading the lives of our thoughts lead our lives. That means we have to find a universal strategy to knowledge. As if wherever the person is, they can attain. If the phenomena is in the outer realms, one can engage it in the outer realms. If the phenomena is in the inner realms, one's engagement is just the shift of their attention. That means it's as if the mind can't hold the thought because it's already holding it. That means if a person is being a thought right now, if we're all considering we're thoughts, it's as if what is holding the thought? And it's like can a thought think? A thought thinking is like a noun being a verb. We should treat the mind like a verb and the body like a noun. And the verb is unknown and the body is known. So if a person wants to live their life as a noun, it's totally explainable why they would settle down in belief systems and not change their mind, because it's like they might not have the energy for it. That means computers, and like when they update, when their software updates, the computer needs to have the memory and the space for the update. If people don't have the space in their moment for their lives to update, it's like they can't download the update. excuse me. I have to make this episode shorter, folks, and just the final remarks on the topic before I end off. So to activate rhythms of the human mind, we trust the moment. As we trust the moment, we can observe the moment. When we observe the moment, we can, in some sense, then decide. We figured out the context of our movement, and then we conceptualized in it. If the context of movement is vague, then that's kind of more like the explorer's approach or the philosopher mystic. The context, the truth behind the context surpasses just, the observable, conceptual dimensions of things. So anyways, thanks for listening, and attention, I gotta say this too, attention is subtle in discovering one is a mind. Every person, it's like, again, the DNA, different instrument, different sound the instrument gives. So every person has to familiarize themselves with the sound and melody of their mind, and how intelligence is happening. Anyways, thanks for listening, and namaste.